Hey everybody. People always ask me, Manny, what tools should I be using for my Amazon business? Well, this episode is brought to you by helium10.com. These are the same tools I use to generate 6 figures per month with Amazon FBA. I get keyword research, product tracking, listing optimization, search term tracking, account monitoring, and a lot of other brand new money pulling tools that are going to be released to Helium 10 members on a regular basis. If you're going to grab any tools, check these out. Seriously, get a massive advantage with the tools that top sellers are using right now. Okay, and they're all in one place. Some tools and services will have a user cap, so get in there as quickly as you can. That's helium10.com, helium10.com.
Warning, the following podcast has been classified as insanely lucrative. Listener discretion is advised.
The question you always need to answer is, how do I get ranked better? And I see a lot of people focusing on so many other things like...
Your attention, please. Listening to the AM/PM podcast may cause recurring revenue streams and unfair advantages over your competitors. Other side effects may include fatter wallets, fired bosses, and longer vacations. Listen at your own risk. Here's your host, 7-figure entrepreneur and online marketing madman, Manny Coates. Manny Coates.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the AM/PM podcast. My name is Manny Coates, and I will be your host, and this is the show where we discuss all things Amazon private label related and how to generate recurring revenue streams 24 hours per day during the AM and the PM, hence the name of the show, AM/PM podcast. As a matter of fact, I was laying in bed last night after a long day of work, and I was talking to my girlfriend, and she has decided that she wants to get into the Amazon business after we started discussing the 2016 final results of my first year in business. And while we were laying there talking about what she wanted to sell, I was making money. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. So that's actually a true fact, guys. I was laying in bed, didn't finish up until pretty late. I think it was about midnight or so. And yeah, I was working with the suppliers that we have. Chinese New Year's coming up. If you're listening to this right away, then Chinese New Year's is just around the corner. And we're trying to get all of our orders in because one of our major suppliers is going to be gone until the middle of February. And so by the time we can actually get our product ready to ship, it's going to be the beginning of March. So essentially, if we don't get our stuff in now, we're going to be getting products in sometime probably the beginning of April, right? When you consider the sea shipping and how long it takes to get out to an Amazon warehouse. So kind of in scramble mode because, it could be the difference between having a $100,000 month and having a $200,000 month, or maybe worse, a $50,000 month, right? So anyways, was late working on all of this kind of stuff and then went to bed. My girlfriend was still up, and we had previously talked about the results for 2016 and how I was kind of blown away at the achievements, I guess, that I had reached. And she had been talking about doing something part-time, after her normal job. She has a pretty solid career, so she doesn't have a lot of time, but she's like, I'm really interested in this particular niche. What do you think? And we started talking about it, and it looks like she's going to do this. So this should be interesting. I typically don't like to work along with, my significant other on this kind of stuff. I've done this in the past, and I like that separation, right? So we can talk about what did you do at work and what did I do? And, the last thing I really want, I guess, is for her to come home and then we're, spending hours working on additional stuff. But at the same time, I'm excited because she's entering my field. So it's going to be kind of cool. So yeah, anyways, she's figured something out. She's going to be doing some research, and hopefully I can report back on some of that progress and what's going on there in the near future. I don't know if it'll ever happen, right? But she actually, this morning, we were having a coffee and she said, hey, I've already started some research. She got up about an hour before I did. So she's excited about it. So am I. So should be, I guess I'm sort of excited. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time working on stuff after hours. I like a little bit of our free time. So we'll see what happens. Anyways, today's episode is going to be an interview that we did a couple weeks ago, actually. It was Jeff Nelson. He's a 100K plus seller, and he's crushing it. He's doing really well. And he's got some nuggets to drop. We met on our Facebook group. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, definitely check it out, guys. 15,000 people in there. It's called the FBA High Rollers. So just type that in on Facebook, FBA High Rollers, and join us. And you can also ask questions to me and to Jeff if you have any questions after listening to this podcast. But definitely join us, please. It's a super active, if not one of the most active communities for Amazon sellers on Facebook right now. So anyways, without further ado, let's jump into this interview and get pen and paper ready. So we're starting right now. Hello, everybody. I am here with Jeff Nelson. He's an Amazon seller, 30 years old, on the outside of Los Angeles here. He's been selling for approximately 18 months, and he's doing some pretty large numbers. Jeff, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks so much. It's really fun to get to do this.
Yeah, so you got some big numbers here. Last time we talked, you said you guys were doing, over $200,000 in sales per month?
Yeah, it's been really good for us. So, it's a fun time right now to be an Amazon seller.
For sure. So we're in December right now. How are the numbers treating you?
So, December, we're getting that December boost. So, our numbers are in the 300 range right now. We don't have anything super gifty, so we didn't see those, triple or 4x numbers like some people report in the December, but, we have been up about 50%. So that's pretty neat.
Cool. And this is over how many SKUs?
Oh, that's a good question. We have quite a few SKUs right now. We have about 20 SKUs. I guess that's quite a few for us.
Yeah, that is a good number. So 20 SKUs, is that on one seller account?
We have 3 seller accounts that we use.
3. Okay. Well, tell us about that, because a lot of people are always asking in our group. They're like, can I get a second account? Am I going to get in trouble? But you got 3. I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. I technically have one. I have a business partner who also has one. And then we got permission for a second one that we have combined for approval. So actually one of us has approval for a second, but then between the two of us, there's 3 accounts, if that makes sense.
Okay. Do you find that there's any issues at all when you guys do you care about logging in through the same IPs and same location?
Since we have the approval, we don't care at all. Actually, Amazon is set up to allow you to do that. So when I go in, since I'm approved, I'm a user on all of the accounts, I just have a drop down. I don't have to log out or log in. I just go to my drop down and pick one of my accounts. I've helped some other people in accounts, so I actually have, if I'm looking, I have 7 accounts in my drop down that I can switch between.
Oh my gosh, 7. Okay, so when you actually applied, did you have to tell them you were in a completely different category, something that's not competing?
Yep. We have completely different products that are not sold across the 2 accounts, and then we also have separate LLCs, entities, bank accounts, everything to go along with it.
Can you be in the same niche as long as it's not the same product?
As far as I understand, you can. What I understood from talking to them is basically they don't want to see you trying to manipulate the system by listing it on this account and switching it back to another account, and then having 2 accounts compete against each other or anything of that sort on the same ASINs.
Right. So how close are some of your products between the accounts? Are they vastly different, or do you have stuff that's pretty similar?
They're very different. We kind of have focused, when we want to expand, say, a line with, similar products, we keep it all to that same account. And then when it's another account, then we have it go to the other. If it deals with that kind of account, it deals with the one. If it's the other. They're not that combined. Hopefully our goal originally was we wanted to set up a lot of accounts, and then each brand could be its own account. So if we ever wanted to exit a brand or anything like that, it'd be really easy. But then found out Amazon doesn't really like to approve more than 2, and then the bookkeeping would get really messy and the entities. And so that idea was very short-lived.
How long was the process to actually get that second account linked so that and get the approval?
Like 5 minutes.
Oh, really? I'm talking about when you actually applied. Did you have to go back and forth with them for a while or no?
No, he just called and we explained the situation and sent in the information, and she said okay, and we submitted it. And I think it was pretty soon thereafter. It might have taken a little longer than that because we did it, over a year ago. But I remember it being pretty. They even approved us for a 3rd account, and then found out later that they weren't supposed to do that. Somebody else said, they should have never done that. So we were approved for a 3rd, but we're not supposed to be. One thing is trusting Amazon reps is a little scary because sometimes they're, minimum wage, and they might say something that Amazon, higher level isn't going to, they might say, even though somebody told you that, that's not right.
So you signed up for the account first and then called them and said, hey, I've got an account. I want to let you guys know about it. Or did you sign up after you told them? We
signed up after we got approval. They said, okay, you're approved to have a second account.
And then you just sign up and then send them the information to link them and you're good to go?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. So you said you have a business partner. Have you guys been partners on this the whole way through, all 18 months?
So yes and no. So we had that one joint account, and we were working together. Plus we had our own separate accounts and everything. And then about 3 months ago, we decided let's combine everything and just go full force. because we were finding we were kind of splitting our time between our joint ones, our separate ones, who does what. And so we decided, let's just put everything together, and we just put all three companies together, and now we're all together. But we started that joint one about 18 months ago.
Okay. Is the $200,000 per month in sales, is that from all of them combined, or is that the joint one?
Let's see. Well, the 200,000 average was all of them combined, but now that main one, with December being here, that 200,000 is just on our main one account.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So curious, how did you guys get started in this? If you go back a year and a half, how'd you jump into Amazon?
As actually my brother-in-law, I heard about, from him that, he was doing this little side hustle, and he said, I'm selling this little product. And I was like, that's really cool. I was thinking, 2-3 here, eBay kind of, selling some stuff around the house. And then he started telling me, I'm selling, quite a few. I'm like, how many? He's like, 100 a day. And I was like, 100 a day? And I was like, well, how much you making per piece? And he's like, somewhere between $6 and $7. I'm like, $6 and $7, 100 a day. I'm like, $600. I started doing the math. I'm like, you're going to make, this much? And he's like, yep. I'm like, okay, wait, hold on. Start over again. Like, wait, what are you doing? And so it kind of spun off from there.
Nice. Yeah. When you start doing those numbers, like 600 times 30 days, wait, you're making 18 grand profit per month? I'm going to jump into this.
Yep. And that's basically what happened.
So how did you get going though? I mean, well, let me ask you this. How much money did you start with?
Okay. So I started with, I think the classic, like, can I start with less than 1,000 and jump into this? And I did, because I didn't have a lot of funds at the time, and just found some little SKU, and I kind of messed up, and I used a product that had some IP attached to it, and I ended up getting that product closed, and I didn't even realize that there was a patent on something I was using, because it was just something really generic seeming, but it got me enough to give me a little bit of runway. And so I went through and modified the product so I wasn't violating a patent, and just made a couple changes, and only took a couple thousand to do that, and started selling that well, and then it just kind of grew and grew from there. But we have taken on additional capital to be able to get to those numbers. We didn't, in 18 months, we didn't do it organically with just reinfusing cash. We actually had to take out a line of credit.
Yeah. How much was that line of credit?
Well, we have an open line of credit for $1 million, but we haven't used it all.
Okay. And that's just traditional lending, like through your bank?
Yeah. I mean, it's through, a private specialty bank that we have. And it's just, an open revolving line of credit for the $1 million.
Were you able to get that pretty easily, being that you were a new company, or was this company already running for a while, so you were able to do it easier?
It was easier just because of the fact that we have quite a bit of inventory. So there's a lot of money associated with that. And then we also just have some business contacts that for recommendations that really helped us to get that line of credit. Having, kind of who really makes a difference. And we went to a specialty bank, so it's not like you have to talk to a teller and then somebody else. The people you work with are decision makers.
Right. Yeah. So that's always the hardest part, right, in the beginning, is that capital, having enough inventory to buy what you need. How much was your product? How much were you buying it for? Or your landed cost? What was it?
For that initial one that I started with a long time ago?
And what were you selling it for?
Let's see. I pay about $3 something a unit, and we sell it for like 14. And that was just a small product, that was the whole, fits in a shoebox kind of thing and can ship over. And it was just really just that typical product you hear about when you're getting in. We've moved away from that style a lot now, and we're launching very, very different style of products now, 18 months later.
So this was all FBA at the time?
Yes, and we're still 100% FBA.
100%. And you're all private label, is that right? Everything's yours?
Correct.
Okay. When you say you're moving away from what you were doing, what do you mean by that?
Just basically, the mentality used to be, let's find an untapped niche, something that nobody's found, and let's go into that and kind of exploit that. But we found that that's just kind of a waiting game until other people find that niche that you're in. And so now we're basically trying to find larger barriers of entry. So for instance, now we're selling a product that's 70 pounds and costs us over $50 a unit. So, to get 2 containers just to start, which is not even enough inventory, we had to lay out about $70,000 just on the first run of units, which, kind of puts us to where we think we're a little more protected, that somebody can't just spend $500 or $1,000 and get some expressed overnight.
Yeah, that's really smart. It's something we've talked about in previous podcasts, getting away from, as you just mentioned, something small, light that can fit in a shoebox. That's something that Scott Volker was, I think, the guy that was teaching this initially to everybody, and getting into something big and heavy because people, they can't afford it. It costs way too much to ship it via Express Air typically. And yeah, your competition drops, I would imagine, substantially, right? There's very few people that are competing with you.
Yeah, there are very few. And nobody can enter it overnight because, we spent 4 months, we went to China and got it designed and worked on it. And then, a month for production, another month for shipping and receiving. And so it's a longer process and somebody, a lot of new players aren't going to just spend 50,000 plus on their first product. It's only going to be an experienced seller, who would do that. And so I think a lot of people find that if you enter those cheap products, somebody hears about it from their neighbor or whether their friend, and they just say, I'm going to try it. They order a bunch of spatulas. The person realizes it doesn't work, and now they liquidate them all at, half their cost. And so how do you compete with somebody who's willing to take a 50% loss in that category?
Yeah, that's true. So obviously you're sending everything over by sea. Who do you use for a freight forwarder, or do you handle that yourself?
No, we have like a broker who handles everything. So from basically we talk to our manufacturer, and then we just get our teller broker, and they have, Chinese contacts, and they get in contact with those factories there, arrange the shipments and bring them over. And then we have a warehouse here in outside of Los Angeles, and then they have everything freighted to us.
Okay. So this is your own personal warehouse that you guys have created?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. Tell us about that. How did that get started?
Basically, it's actually my dad. He had a warehouse that he was using for like a baseball facility for my brother. And then my brother graduated high school and everything. And, and that baseball facility was just being used by, other teams and coaches. And he said, hey, I wouldn't be opposed to the idea now that your business is, you can't fit it in your house anymore, using that. So we moved we have about 7,000 square feet.
The warehouse is 7,000 square feet?
Yes.
Okay, cool. And then so you bring everything into your warehouse, and then do you store it there and only send in what you need to Amazon? Or is that just kind of like the landing place where it needs to go, and it immediately goes to Amazon once it gets here?
No, we definitely store here. I don't know, especially with you've seen the storage costs in November and December being almost 3 to 4x of typical, that we find that it's a lot cheaper to store them ourselves than it is to ship direct to Amazon, because those storage fees just go through the roof. And then also, if there's ever a problem with the SKU or anything like that, you don't have to recall all of your stuff, or say, customers complain about something. If you want to update and fix and change, if it's all on hand, it's really easy to do comparatively.
Yeah. Are you by your warehouse now?
Yes.
I think I can hear forklifts and things backing up. And
yeah, it's. I thought it was far enough away that you could.
No, it's cool. In case you guys are wondering, guys, that's why you hear that. So guys hustling. So perfect. So what category are you mainly selling in these big products?
We have, we're in quite a few different categories. We're in home and garden, and outdoors, kitchen, sports. What else are we in? Baby, pet. So we're in quite a few.
You're all over. Yeah.
Yeah. So first we just kind of were just, hey, that looks good. Let's do that. Hey, that looks good. Let's try that. And it didn't really matter if they weren't related or not. But then once we realized we have 10 SKUs all working really well, we can do, size variations, color variations, a higher quality product, lower quality. And so now we're just, from each of those maybe original 10, now we can do 5 or 6 versions of each of those 10.
Nice. How many new SKUs would you say you're adding every X amount of time, like every month or year?
My partner and I, like we said, we just merged everything about 3 months ago, and we got that line of credit. And so that's kind of changed everything. So we've, spent about 400,000 to 500,000 in the last 3 months. So things have just been crazy right now. Like the warehouse, I can't even walk in. We're having to use, third-party logistics for receiving and warehousing because we can't fit everything. So we're launching in December, I think like 12 new SKUs, but some of them are variations. So we're launching about 5 or 6 of them are completely brand new independent SKUs of everything else.
Do you find that launching variations and using, the existing power of that parent product, that's already got all the reviews, is that beneficial to you versus coming out with a product on its own? Because I've heard people, say it both ways.
Yeah, I think we're kind of trying to balance it, because if you say you have a product ranked really well and it only comes in black and you're like, man, brown would do really well too, it's pretty easy to throw brown on, but you might only get 20% of your sales. As opposed to if you have a brand new SKU, you could maybe get 80% of that number one. So we try to balance it. A lot of it comes down to is how many suppliers we want to deal with in supply chains, that if we can just say, hey, just throw in 3,000 more of, the brown color, it's pretty easy and it doesn't take a lot of our time. And so it's like, why not, kind of thing. And then we kind of, some of our products, maybe you want 10 of your own products ideally on page 1 out of 15 listings. It'd be great, because now it looks like when somebody searches you, this is the go-to brand. Look, like if you look at inflatable mattresses on Amazon. There's one brand they're all on page one basically. And so anybody shopping for it thinks, okay, which one of this brand am I going to pick? And so we'd like to do that. So it's a balance between just sharing the listing versus creating brand new listings. And I don't know the best answer.
Right. So if you're doing variations, then you're not going to have those 10 out of 15 listings is what you're saying.
Correct. But you can just have them up the next day. You don't have to do new listings. You don't have to get more reviews, rankings, or anything, but you don't benefit from being the brand on the page.
Right. Yeah, that's important. So yeah, you got to figure it out. That's where we're at as well. We're trying to figure out, we have some really big brands and we're like, should we add a variation and just go with, products that have over 1,000 reviews, or do we start fresh and try to build it up? So there's some techniques out there, but let me ask you about the shipping. I'm curious about this. You guys are shipping over in containers, right?
Yes.
You're using 20 foot, 40 foot? What do you guys typically ship in?
Well, generally what we try to do is just see about what our quantity needs to be. We try to look at maybe the second or third most popular item. If we wanted to sell those mattresses, we'd say, we don't think we're going to be number one. We think we can be maybe 3 or 4. How much is number 3 or 4 selling? Oh, they're selling 1,000 a month. And we know we need about a 90-day supply, a month to produce it, a month for the ocean, and then a month to start selling it and see how it goes. So we'll say if they're selling 1,000 a month, we need 90-day supply. We need to order 3,000. So we'll just kind of say, how big is the product? Does a 3,000 fit in a 20-footer? Does a 3,000 fit in a 40-footer?
Yeah.
And just kind of go. So the one product we ordered that was really big, we would have needed 4 full containers. And we're like, well, we can't really do 4 45-foot containers on go number 1. So we kind of got a little scared and did 2. But in general, we're doing just 40 HQs.
40 HQs. What's it cost typically to get something from your factory landed into your warehouse?
For my estimates, I like to use about $2,000 for a 20-foot and $4,000 for a 40-foot, just to make it really round.
Well, that's pretty low. Is that all fees?
Yeah, we don't have any duties on any of our products. Generally, we try to avoid any because I know that some products have like 150% on certain things. But yeah, we find the shipping alone is normally only like $800 or $900 of it. And then it seems like getting it from the port to my warehouses, they charge us $600 more, and then dock fees and congestion fee.
Dock fees, palletizing, everything, right? Or do you have that all done before it even gets shipped out to you?
We don't palletize. That would be a lot more expensive. We do it ourselves in-house. So we just get the full container and hand unload it.
Okay, all right. I'm actually looking for some new freight forwarding companies just to compare, because we were looking at some 40-foot containers and they were like $9,000 to get them to Amazon. That's kind of the all the content. So I thought that was $15,000. Not 9,000, 15,000 for the big ones, and I think 9,000 for a smaller one.
Yeah, I guess there's probably some fees there that you have with shipping because they're getting it from the port all the way to Amazon.
Yeah.
Across the country, and so there might be some other fees there, but that could be a little bit higher. And ours vary. So there's sometimes they're as low as 3 and as high as 6.
Okay. So it sounds like you're pretty busy. How many hours are you working each day?
All day, every day. I'm full time.
How many hours would that be?
So, I probably work a day, 10 hours a day at least, I'd say, 6 days a week.
Okay. So you're still getting good sleep.
Yeah, I do. We have a new baby at home, so I try to get as much as I can.
Nice. Let's go back earlier. You said that your first product actually had an issue, an intellectual property, you had some kind of a patent issue, I think you said. When that happened, did they block that account on just that product? Was it a suspension? What happened there?
They just blocked that specific product. They basically said, I created my own listing, so I wasn't jumping on anybody else's buy box. So I just had my own listing set up, and they just shut it down.
So what'd you do with all that inventory?
It's in the garbage. I wrote it off.
Oh, you did? Okay.
At first, I was like, I'm going to sell it, and it sat in my garage for months while I worked on new product, and then suddenly I just said, you keep saying you're going to get to it, and it's been 6 months, so I just wrote it off, and it's gone.
Yeah. It's tough, right? There's not much you can do if it's violating something unless you can somehow change it to where it's not. But if it's already made, becomes difficult. I've heard companies actually deal with the manufacturer and work something out where they are allowed to sell it, but then they do some kind of a revenue share or split, but that's very rare.
Yeah, that would have maybe been smart, but I think this guy who owned the patent, there was a bunch of us all selling it, so I thought it was fine, and 10 of them disappeared overnight, listings.
So how do you end up finding your new products nowadays? It's 18 months later, things have changed quite a bit, even 12 months. I've been doing this for just over a year, and it's massively different. What do you do? How are you guys finding stuff?
It's hard to say. I think we're just, in the everyday world, you kind of come into contact with stuff and just think maybe that would be a good idea. And just to give you an idea, I was at Costco and I saw those little medical assist walkers. And you're like, man, that isn't a pretty small box for how big of a product that is. And they have it priced for $129. I'm like, I could ship that for cheap. And so I'm like going home and looking up. I haven't moved on it. Maybe it is good. I haven't really done anything with it. So, but it was just, kind of that idea that we had there. And lately we've honestly been focusing on expanding our current product lines. Cause if you say you sell drapes, you're like, well, suddenly I can sell ones that are, pleated and patterned and, dark, light, and, 6 foot, 8 feet, 12 feet, and suddenly now you've got 35 listings of drapes. So there's just so much to go on. So I think that's kind of where we've kind of found, and then we can just naturally run into one or two products. I think that initial one is where you're just digging through listing after listing and going to Alibaba, AliExpress, and that's the hard part.
Is that where you get the majority of your suppliers and all your products is through Alibaba?
Yeah, for the most part. Some of our best suppliers we found at the Canton Fair. We feel like we got really lucky that they weren't on Alibaba. So there was some value there.
So you recommend people go to the Canton Fair every year?
We went once, and it was, it wasn't my favorite vacation of all time, but it was really useful because we knew what we were looking for, and there's a lot of suppliers there, and we found people, and we were able, there's Canton Fairs in phases. So we went to phase 2 and 3, and between phase 2 and 3, there's like a 3-day period. So we met people at the beginning of phase 2, gave them our designs. They made it. We went to their factory during the break and went and inspected the units and updated them. And then we're able to, have samples made, visit factories and everything all during the 10 days we were there.
Okay. Yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to going. I haven't been yet, but you said it wasn't your favorite vacation. Was it something bad happened?
It's a little, no, nothing bad. It's just a little crazier for me than my taste, just with the cab drivers and the smells and everything. It was just the food. It was just, it was
all foreign, all different.
Yeah, all different.
So when you went to Canton, did you go with appointments already set up to meet specific people, or did you find these gems just by kind of walking through and talking to vendors?
We had a couple set up, and then a couple actually bailed on us last minute. I think a supplier said, one of their biggest customers basically, I guess, heard about us and pushed us out of the deal, and they didn't want us supplying us. And so we were like kind of scrambling last minute. A bunch of the stuff we had set up kind of fell through, and we had a couple that were there, but a lot of it we just found on the spot, people we didn't even know about at all until we were there. And I think we were using 3 suppliers that we found there. And I mean, to have samples made and be able to check, a 70-pound product, it would have cost us, hundreds of dollars to ship a sample. I mean, probably cheaper to go there, go meet people, find people, go to the factory and check them than it is just to ship a sample back and forth 3 times.
Yeah. Do you use an inspection company for all your products before they ship out here?
We do. Yes. Yeah. We make sure to always have everything inspected beforehand.
Okay. Do you care to mention who that is, or do you want to keep that private?
We go back and forth. There's that, the really famous one, I think it's called V-Trust. I'm not sure if you know them. I just want to make sure I'm saying the right name. They're like the biggest one at the Canton Fair. They probably have 100 agents around. They're everywhere, and they're pretty reputable, but they're pretty expensive. I think they're closer to $400 for an inspection. So when we have like this $70,000 order, we spend the $400.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But sometimes when it's just a little small, like making sure that they updated our cartons the way that we wanted and everything's still smooth on a third order, we'll send in somebody who does like $100 inspection, and it's just mainly because they send like 80 pictures. So it's just a nice way to get all that updated into us.
Yeah, it's absolutely worth every penny, I would say. You're going to find problems that you didn't find. One of my very first products was a toy product, and I remember having it shipped to Amazon directly because the samples were great, and I never did an inspection on it. And the products had like hair and debris and stuff inside the toys. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not good.
Did they charge you extra for the hair? Or?
Yeah, you know what? It was free. It was a bonus. It was nice.
That is nice.
So yeah, it was kind of crazy. But so you said you went there, you talked to them, you gave them your design. So are you doing your own molding and that kind of stuff in China?
Yeah, we do. We don't do like from scratch. We're not like inventing anything. So what we're typically doing is, taking something that somewhat exists and then, kind of reinventing the wheel a little bit, or kind of trying to better mousetrap something. But normally we do, we have products that have a setup fee of $1,000, $2,000, $500, somewhere in there type dollars just to get started with a mold or for some custom manufacturing.
Are you just giving them the basic ideas, or are you actually providing serious specifications? You have it all set up through a 3D program?
I've done that once, the whole CAD and going that route, but it was much more difficult than I anticipated it to do, even with those designs, because different manufacturers have different capabilities, to produce different bends in metal and different technologies and whatever. One company might have a machine that can do, A, but a different company doesn't have that machine. And so that was hard. So we've kind of leaned more on, kind of napkin sketches and saying, look, this is what we want to get out of here. You tell us how you can get this done. What's the most economical way, and do you think it's possible? And if we have, and with our good suppliers, they're pretty good about that. And we have some other ones that trying to do that is a nightmare, because there is no originality or inventiveness. But other ones, they're like, yeah, I see what you're talking about, and they'll make samples, send us pictures. We'll say, no, not quite like that, and they'll get back to us and say, how about like this? And okay, great, let's do that.
How are you launching your products now? Now with the incentivized reviews being illegal, essentially, you got a big product, an expensive product. What do you do if you're not a variation? How do you get that thing going?
That's like the $1 million question right now. And we're not even 100% sure. We're in the testing phase, I guess you could call it. And we have all of those new SKUs about to come out. And so we're really having to figure it out. One of the most basic ways right now is just to drive sales with price and PPC, and it's hard because the review rate is maybe somewhere around 3 or 4% with an email program, follow-up program where you're soliciting those reviews. But you can drive the sales off the get-go if you have a $50 product and everybody's selling it for 50 or 60, and you come in at break even or willing to lose $5 or $10 just to get that momentum going. That's kind of what we have kind of tried to do.
Makes sense. So you're driving a lot of traffic through pay-per-click. You're putting the price you're just putting it at a sale price. You're not using coupons or anything like that to drop the price. Is that what you're doing?
Correct. Yep.
How long do you run it like that before eventually getting to your full price?
Mainly we base it on our rank. We have targets of where we want to be ranked for our keyword results. And we'll take kind of as long as it needs to get there, because the main thing I found to being able to sell well and at a high price is having a good organic rank. And it's kind of a compounding effect, because if you have that good organic rank, you keep getting more sales. So you keep getting more reviews and you keep, getting more traffic, and then your long tail keywords keep getting better because more people are seeing you from different keywords, and it kind of just helps. But if you're just sitting on page 2 and just holding at that price, you might start going the opposite way, where your sales start to slip because you had to raise your price, and now you ranked on page 3 and now your sales slip more, and it's just kind of a never ending cycle.
Yeah, it's spiraling effect. So do you go after a certain number of keyword phrases initially, or is it just like one main keyword phrase? What do you focus on?
Yeah, we normally focus on like our main keyword phrase. Every product we have, we'll kind of say, okay, ideally, what do we want to be ranked for? And then we'll set up, track another 10 additional keywords on top of that and kind of see where our trend is going. And then we make sure that we're ranked for, we want to be ranked for a few thousand words. Few thousand keywords, just, long tail and everything. But we try to we'd like to be at least on page 1 for our main word, and then towards the top of page 1 for our secondary words on all of our products. Really we want to be on, number 1 on all of them, but it's hard.
Right. What do you think separates you guys from your competitors when you're launching products, or even, 3-4 months after you've launched? Why are people buying you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that we're aggressively priced. I think that Amazon is a very price-sensitive marketplace, which is, tough to do. If we want to release like a premium product, I think it's really difficult. So we understand that we're not trying to be the best of everything, because now we're going to be 50% more expensive. So we need to be competitive in our price. And then, we have good relationships with our manufacturers. And so we try to make sure our star ratings and our quality is there and our follow-up is there. We have really solid listings. People talk about just the basics of bullet points and photography, and all of that is really on point with. And then we make sure that all their branding is included, and is really good with all the products, and packaging is everything. So we just hope that there's a good process the entire way there for the customer. And then the other thing is, I think we're good at kind of carving out a space in every product that we sell. If you're selling a product, let's say, I don't know, I mentioned curtains earlier. You might notice everybody's selling 8 foot, but there's some demand for 10 foot. So maybe you come out with a really nice, 10 foot long curtain or whatever it is. And so that kind of gives you an easier way to get some sales right off the bat because you're not competing with everybody else, even though you're in that strong category.
Okay. All right. Interesting. What do you think? I mean, you probably look at a lot of listings. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making?
Some of the biggest mistakes, I would say the number one mistake I would say is that they're not focusing on their keyword ranks, that they're focusing on things like BSR and things like that. When BSR is it's just a relative ranking, of course, when you lower your price, your BSR goes, lower and because you're selling more, and when you raise your price, you're selling less. It doesn't mean much. It's only to compare yourself to other sellers. If you want to be able to be at the top, you need to figure out how am I going to get to the top of my page in my keyword. Because anything else you do, fixing your listing, retaking your pictures, just changing words in your bullet points, worrying about these little tiny things is not going to fix it for you. The question you always need to answer is, how do I get ranked better? And I see a lot of people focusing on so many other things like, well, I'm going to start, going to other platforms. I'm going to start trying to drive traffic, other that just don't work. And I say, just what are you doing to move up your ranks? And the main way to do that is volume, but they're not focusing on how they're converting, run PPC to those keywords, drive traffic to those things. Make sure that you're priced, effectively at the beginning. If you can't afford to be, if you say, I need to be priced at $60 to make money, and you want to be at $60 day one, it's going to be really tough when you have 3 reviews and somebody else has 800 and they're priced at the same price.
Yeah. Do you handle all your launches yourself, or do you use services out there that do that for you?
We used to use services before, back when it wasn't banned or up in the air. But now we do all of our launches ourselves.
Okay, cool. So, wow, this is a lot of good information. Thank you. I think people will appreciate, where you came from, especially being 18 months old. It's not like you've been doing this for 5 years on Amazon, and it seems like you've got everything nailed down pretty well.
I think one of our biggest things is, I enjoy having a partner because we, sometimes we'll spend like 3 hours in one day just discussing like, well, how could we do this new launch? What process is going to work best? And then we record and write down, okay, well, we launched at this price with this many units and, we did this type of advertising. We tried a Facebook campaign. Like, okay, how did that all play out? What worked, what didn't work? And we're always trying to experiment. And I think that that's one of the things that successful sellers are able to do and is to try to be on like the cutting edge. When changes happen, it can be an advantage because everybody else is kind of left behind. And so that's something we really try hard to do. And we're not great at it and perfect at it, but we do always want to be able to have that new information and those new techniques and those new strategies where other people have been doing it the same way since, just dumping, super URLs and 5,000, sales into that same super URL was their only way of doing it. Now they're kind of hung out to dry.
Yeah. How'd you meet your partner, by the way?
We were friends in high school. We had a job together in hh school and met each other and then just stayed friends and went to college and were roommates and went our separate ways kind of, and then kind of got back together about a year and a half ago.
Awesome. So 18 months, right? If you could go back 18 months, okay, meet yourself just before you start this business, what advice would you give yourself?
I've actually thought about that one. That was a little bit easier question for me than the last one about how we differentiate ourselves. But I think the few things I would give myself is one is I think there's some dangerous mentality out there that paying for information is a negative, that you should never pay for information. And I think I was a little bit scared to be willing to, sign up for a course and you're like, well, there's that you can get that information for free. But I didn't know that. I had to dig for months and hundreds of hours. I could have just maybe paid for a mentor or a coach here or there. And sure, they might have only, had 10 good things, but 10 good things is a lot of, information out there. I mean, your podcast probably helps a lot of people. And I think I was a little bit scared. And my business partner, he already had a successful business. I was, I'm going to drive everything to the UPS store myself and I'm going to compare 10 different quotes on shipping. He's like, dude, it's $5 difference. Just do it. Let's move on to the business. Focus on your business. Stop focusing on these little things. And I think that helped me a lot, was to just stop focusing on every single little penny and just focus on big picture and growth and realize, wow, like saving $2 here means nothing when I just launched 3 new products in that time I spent.
Great advice. Yeah. So don't get stuck with the small things. Move forward, take action, get things going.
Yeah.
So perfect. Awesome, man. Well, anything you want to add that we didn't cover? Because we had a lot of things.
Yeah, it was a little bit, all over the place, but
I like those kinds of podcasts though, because I think, as we're talking, things pop in my mind, and I'm hoping that as people are listening, they're like, oh, he just mentioned this. Well, what about this? So I could probably keep this going for like 2 hours. We talked about this before the podcast. I'm like, at one point we have to shut it off. But yeah, I love these conversations where nothing's really planned.
Yeah, no, it works for me. I don't think I enjoy the conversations. I enjoy meeting people. I'm in your Facebook group. I follow it all. So I think there's always something more to learn.
Yeah, and you're just down the road. So I think you're less than 45 minutes away. We'll have to meet up one of these days. Perfect.
Appreciate it.
So, well, thank you for coming on the show, Jeff. I appreciate it. And yeah, we'll chat soon. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely check out episode number 98. In episode 98, we talk about whether or not you can select which Amazon warehouse you want to send your products to. Okay, that's in episode number 98. Hey guys, Manny Coates here. If you've been following my podcast, you know I'm a huge fan of the Helium 10 tools for Amazon sellers. I only use the best tools out there, and the Helium 10 suite of tools are, in my opinion, best in class. Now, just because I'm the founder of Helium 10 doesn't mean that's all I use, right? I go where the money's at, and if there's a tool on the market that I haven't made and that tool helps me make money, I'll use it, and I'll talk about it here on the podcast, and I'll even link to it in our tools section at the ampmpodcast.com website. But I can honestly say that there's no place that I know of where you can get all the important tools that an FBA seller would need in one place, where the tools work with one another to help you save time and make you a lot of money. Now, the Helium 10 tools have had a huge hand in helping me go from zero to over $1 million in Amazon sales in just 10 months. Okay, keyword research, listing optimization, and a super tool called 5K Checker that makes sure that the words in my listings, okay, the front end and the back end, are actually indexed by Amazon. And guys, if you're not checking this, you're leaving money on the table for sure, because Amazon is always tweaking their search engine. Okay, so I always use 5K Checker every single month on every single one of my listings to ensure that my listings are still indexed for my keywords and that I'm still pulling in customers like crazy. If you're a longtime listener, you know I'll never use a tool unless it can save me a lot of time or it's gonna make me a lot of money. So I'm confident Helium 10 will do this for you guys, all right? There's a money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Check it out. Head over to helium10.com. Helium10.com, that's HELIUM10.com.
You've been listening to the AM/PM podcast hosted by Manny Coates. For more information, insider tools, and to get the resources mentioned in this episode, visit ampmpodcast.com.